Yo, people and patrons of the night, it is your boy BD, and I am once again back. So, welcome back to the Horror Tavern. Make sure that you take a seat, you grab a drink, and you're especially going to need it when we talk about some of the crazy stuff in this movie. So, get ready as we explore the limitless cavern that is the horror genre. And we are once again back into the VHS movie franchise. As of the time of this video coming out, I have officially watched every single movie in the VHS franchise, the main timeline. I have not seen, excuse me, the spin-off films, Kids vs. Aliens and Siren. I've not seen those yet. I do plan on watching them, but I've seen all the mainline movies, aka the three main movies that came out, and then the three new Shudder movies. So I'm going to be trying to make video reviews on all the 6 movies, as well as do maybe like a video like my top 5 favorite VHS segments. I'm not going to do a movie ranking. I'm not going to rank all the segments. I'm going to wait to do a top 10 later, because every year Shudder's coming out with more and more VHS movies. There's going to be one coming out this year that's supposed to be science fiction based. So as long as they keep coming out with more movies, I might as well just wait until, the series finishes, and then I can do all these, big videos. But as of right now, I'll just do like a top 5 VHS segment video, which one of the stories in this movie may or may not be on that list. So keep that in mind. But today we're going to be talking about VHS 2 2013. This is the second movie in the main trio timeline. And this movie came out a year later from the first VHS movie, kind of building off that success and momentum. And same people that were involved with the first movie is basically involved in this one. I forgot to mention this in the last video review I did of VHS, but there is a company that's involved with the making of these movies, the main ones, and that's Bloody Disgusting Horror, which I wanted to give a shout out to. Bloody Disgusting Horror is like a horror website blog that kind of talks about movies, TV shows, books, all types of horror media. And I've read some of their stuff, some of their articles, some of their, posts and stuff. So I'm a fan of theirs. And I didn't even know that they were involved with these movies until I saw, the previews in the movies in the beginning, and then I checked the Wikipedia. So shout out to them. They're a part of a very big franchise. These first 2 movies are monumental. So shout out to Bloody Disgusting Horror for that. So let's get into the actual review of the movie. I'm going to go segment by segment. There is a wraparound segment that obviously is shown in intervals in between each of the anthology stories. I'll talk about that wraparound segment first instead of waiting till the end of the video, and then we'll get into the 4 anthology segments. This time it's 4 instead of 5, so you actually have more time with a certain segment that helps it out tremendously. So let's talk about it. So the first one is Tape 49, and this was directed and written by Simon Barrett. So Tape 49 is the wraparound segment. It's about this mother of a college student who calls in this couple who are private investigators because she wants to find out about the disappearance of her son. So this couple of private investigators, you get introduced to kind of the work that they do. It's shown that they they record this guy who's cheating on his wife, and then they take that footage and then try to blackmail him with it. So they sort of catch these different things, and now they're being, put on this case to find this missing kid, which is a little bit more higher stakes than what they usually do. So they end up going to this son, Kyle's college dorm, and once they go in there, all the lights are off. It's very dark and dingy. They get this sort of creepy atmosphere, this sort of creepy feeling once they enter there. And in this couple, there's obviously the boyfriend and girlfriend. The girlfriend ends up going to a room, and she sees this small, box TV, and there's these VHS tapes that are lined up there. So she sort of gets very intrigued. Her boyfriend keeps exploring more of the dorm, trying to find some clues as to what happened to Kyle. And in the meanwhile, she starts playing up this VHS tapes. And as the movie continues, she becomes very enthralled with these VHS tapes. Even though they disturb her, even though they freak her out, she becomes obsessed in watching all of them. And then at the end of it, she may or may not kill herself. And when the guy comes back, he ends up seeing that in her blood is written "watch." And there's a last VHS tape that he has to basically get threatened to watch. And throughout these different, interjecting segments of the wraparound, you kind of get the feeling that there's some other presence that's in this dorm room, and you even get shadowy glimpses of a figure in the mirror and stuff. And when he puts in this VHS tape that's written, in blood, his dead girlfriend's blood, that he should watch it, it ends up showing Kyle. And Kyle actually is shown with these VHS tapes. And then he ends up shooting himself through the head and blows off his jaw. And as he basically slumps over and collapses, all of a sudden Kyle gets up. And for some reason, Kyle is not dead. And you see him run into the closet of this dorm room. In his room, the room of the VHS tapes, he runs into that closet and hides there. And then a couple of minutes or moments later, you see the private investigator couple start walking and exploring the house. And moments ago, the guy who blew off his head to kill himself, who's alive and runs into the closet, did all that within a mere minutes before these guys arrived. And I'll leave it at that. Some more stuff happens, but you can watch the movie to figure it out. Very creepy, very ominous segment. It's almost as creepy, if not more creepy, than the wraparound segment in the first movie. I think this one got under my nerves more, so this is a very good wraparound segment. It's sort of like it's like its own good quality anthology segment in itself, and that's sort of what I like about these wraparound segments in these first two movies, is that and even in some of the VHS movies, the wraparound segments, like in this movie and VHS 85, which is the latest installment of the franchise, they have really good wraparound segments that actually feel like anthology segments in themselves. So Tape 49, that was a damn good segment. I would give that like an 8.5, 9 out of 10, because it's as good quality and better than some of the segments in this movie, but we'll get to that. So that's Tape 49. So good job, Simon Barrett. That was well done. So the first anthological segment that we get into is called Phase 1 Clinical Trials. Phase 1 Clinical Trials is directed by Adam Wingard, and it's written by Simon Barrett. Simon Barrett is the one who written and directed the Tape 49 wraparound, which I just talked about. So Adam Wingard, this guy has become very, very popular, so good for him. He was involved in directing and I think producing or directing, I don't know, Blair Witch 2016, and he's involved with the two new Godzilla vs. Kong movies. The first Godzilla vs. Kong movie, which was a big success, and then Godzilla vs. Kong New Empire, which I actually watched in the theater recently with my homie, and that was a fun movie. I had a good time. So shout out to Adam Wingard. His career has very much gone up an upward trajectory, so good for you, man. Phase 1 Clinical Trials is about a guy who ends up in a car accident. And after he got into this car accident, he had his eye basically really messed up. And he ends up becoming a part of these clinical trials, these scientific experiments where they try putting in some kind of like technological advancements into his body. And this involves him getting a biotech eye. Yeah. He gets a new technological eye put into his socket, and when it turns on, he's able to look around and see in his perfect 20/20 vision. But when you look into the mirror, and this has good visual effects, it's like a white pupil. You can tell it's like a digital pupil, and this is going to be his new biotech eye that he's going to be using. So this is like an alternate timeline where technology is very far advanced. And he goes home to his like very nice, I think he's probably rich because he's got like a very nice house. It looks damn near like a expensive mansion. So this is a wealthy guy. That's why he was able to afford this new technological eye implant. And when he gets back to his house, he notices that this eye starts glitching and he starts seeing some very weird things. And it may or may not involve him being able to see the paranormal. He's able to see dead spirits, dead people, the forms of ghosts in his house, and he starts getting very freaked out. And as the story continues, he starts seeing some scary stuff, which gets him really paranoid. He thinks that his eye either may be glitching out and making him hallucinate, either it's real or something. He's not quite sure. And then as the story progresses, he meets this girl who he briefly saw back in the clinical trial lab. And this girl, turns out that she actually had an implant, but she was deaf. She did not lose her eyesight. She's actually deaf. So they put in audible implants into her, and she's actually able to hear ghosts. So they both have this sixth sense, and they come together to try to figure out what they can do about the situation, and things go very bad. They start getting slowly targeted by some things because the problem with these implants for some reason is that they're able to detect paranormal activity and presences, and at the same time, while you become more aware of them, the ghosts become more aware of you. And that can potentially lead to problems depending on whether they're benevolent or malevolent. It can quite go bad if it's unmonitored or you don't do something about it. So that's phase 1 clinical trials. I would give this one like a 7.5 out of 10. It's a decent to pretty good segment. I have a big problem with it though. But let's get into the positives. I like the whole premise of the segment. The premise of the segment is very fucking cool. I mean, it is a really cool story segment to make. The idea that this guy gets into an accident, he gets this new, high-tech genetically modified eye implant that he's able to see perfectly with now, and it has a recording feature, which is why it's found footage. It records all the data and information that he sees and brings it back to the clinical trial people, the researchers. It's a very cool idea, and the fact that he's able to see ghosts, paranormal activity, is a nice spoof on the usual Sixth Sense concept. So I thought that was really clever and really well done, that part. But I do have a big problem with this segment, which brings down its score heavily, and that is the fact that it can be very corny in certain places. And yeah, the acting at certain points with like the deaf girl can be a little bit corny, the guy's acting can be okay. But my main problem as to why it's corny is the makeup effects on the ghosts. Holy shit, dude. I've seen better ghost effects in Are You Afraid of the Dark than this VHS sequel to the first movie in 2013. These ghost makeup effects, I can't even call them practical effects. I mean, this is barely even any practical enhancements. These ghosts are just painted like gray and white. It's just normal. It's like a girl who's just pale. It's just like pale girl. Like it literally, the ghost in this movie just look like normal guys, like me wearing a suit, except they made my skin gray and they like grayed out my clothing. Like that's what it looks like. It looks like these guys were just painted, gray and white and then sent out to go into this segment. It's really lazy. I mean, it has to be some of the laziest visual effects I've seen. The ghosts are not scary at all. They're not even intimidating. I mean, yeah, you get some jump scares in there, but then when you see the ghost, they look real shitty. I've seen better ghost effects on Goosebumps, the original show back in the 90s, and Are You Afraid of the Dark, the original show back then. And that's bad, because this is supposed to be, again, a sequel to VHS 1 2012. VHS 1 2012 had pretty good visual effects and practical stuff for the most part, and just well shot overall. And the fact that this is what they did for the ghost is really disappointing. I mean, I get you got budget issues, you got to make with what you got, but yeah, it feels like all the budget went towards the biotech eye to make it look good, and then the ghosts just look really poor and lazy, which I feel like is just, you're kind of misusing your resources. I mean, it's supposed to be a horror segment. You put more effect into the ghost, it's going to make them real scary, as opposed to this, which, yeah, unfortunately, that is a problem. And you can tell that the lack of budget in a couple of these segments, or at least, a few of them, went into putting a lot more budget with one of the segments, which it worked out, but, I got to take it for what it is. Phase 1 clinical trials, a 7 out of 10, 7.5 out of 10, that's basically my thoughts about it. Just really lazy ghost effects. They look real bad. But the idea is very cool, so I give it points for that. The next one is called A Ride in the Park, and this one is directed by Eduardo Sanchez and Greg Hale, and it's written by Jamie Nash. This is the weakest segment in the movie to me. I was not a fan of this one. It was just very stupid, in my opinion. Not terrible, not as bad as this is not as bad as the weakest segment in the first movie. Well, we'll see. They're probably on par with each other, or similar. So this one, A Ride in the Park, is about this guy who gets a phone call from his girl. You can tell they're very much in a loving relationship. And he does like GoPro YouTube videos. He records himself riding his bike and just putting that up, I guess, for like videos on like YouTube or something, or some website. He just records himself riding his bike. And he ends up getting approached by this woman who's covered in blood and is vomiting up blood. And then it turns out that there is some zombies in these woods that he's riding his bike in. And these zombies start approaching him. These zombies start obviously attacking him. And then he gets turned into a zombie for the remainder of this segment. And that's pretty much the story. The rest of the segment is just him walking around as a zombie, potentially attacking some people that are having a picnic. And then it ends, I guess, on a kind of dark note. I guess you turn out that even though he's a zombie, he still has some consciousness. Like, the thing that happens at the end of this segment is like some cornball, like The Power of Love type of shit, which made no real sense to me, but whatever. Yeah, that's all this segment has. It's just a very basic, very to the point segment. A Ride in the Park gets like a 5.56 out of 10. I would, you know what, this is probably weaker. This is weaker than the segment in the first movie. The weakest segment in the first movie of VHS was A Second Honeymoon, which is very basic, very boring. But that one still had some creepy scenes in there, some creepy atmosphere that made you uncomfortable. Here, it's just stupid. I'm sorry. This segment is just dumb. I would give this one a 5.5 or 5 out of 10. It's just, it's okay, but it's sort of kind of bad, you know, just very boring segment. And another complaint I have is, again, the effects on these zombies are very lazy, dude. I mean, these look like some lazy story segments. I mean, I watched Animal Planet, Lost Tapes found footage anthology show involved with cryptids. And there was some whack practical effects in that one where it's just sort of like bloody mouths and yeah, blood on the shirt. And then they always put those Kanye West, you know, the white pupil. They put on those contact lenses that are like white and has that black pupil in there to kind of make you look undead or ghostly. Just really poor, lazy practical effects and makeup in this one too, that again don't make the zombies feel intimidating at all. I wasn't even intimidated by them. And it's just, I don't know, it feels like something you would see on YouTube that was made by some YouTubers, but then it's a full-on movie, so, you know, a full main release movie. Nah, it's just lazy. So that gets a 5.56 out of 10. Not that good. The next one. Let me take a sip for this. Sip to this segment. The third segment in this movie. Oh my God. Oh my Lord. Listen here, people. This segment right here is that motherfucking shit right here. That motherfucking shit right here. This one is called Safe Haven. This is directed and written by, and apologies if I mess up your name, I don't speak Indonesian, but you did a fantastic job in this one along with the other guy. It's directed and written by Timo Tjahjanto, or Shanto. I don't know how you say it. It's Tjahjanto, Timo. I'm just going to say Tjahjanto. And Gareth Evans. And spoiler alert, this is my favorite story segment that I've seen in all of the VHS movies so far. I'm talking the 3 main movies. I'm talking the 3 Shudder movies that came out in all 6 films. However many segments those are, including the wraparound. This is my favorite segment in the entire VHS franchise. This one, I give in my this segment gets a 9.5 out of 10. I might even give it a 10 out of 10 later on. You know what? Fuck it. Fuck it. I'm giving this segment a 10 out of 10. This is a 10 out of 10 found footage anthology horror segment. Let's get straight. Yeah, I'm just going to give it. This is a 10 out of 10. This is a brilliant, brilliant segment. Safe Haven is about these group of, I guess, reporters and videographers that go to this Indonesian cult at this school. They're visiting this Indonesian cult to kind of get like a story scoop on them. They got some local people in the recording group that can speak to these people. They just want to record them. Sort of like what you get on like Vice. If you've ever seen like the Vice YouTube channel, they go up to like cannibal tribes in like Africa and India, or they go record and interview these crazy people. So this is sort of like a bootleg suit. Well, I can say bootleg because these guys in here made a great segment. This is sort of like a pseudo Vice, sort of getting the scoop on this Indonesian cult. And they go to this Indonesian cult school. They're greeted by this very beautiful, very proper woman that's in all white gowns and clothing, and they refer to her as Madam. And as Madam is walking around and they explore the school, it's sort of like a dingy, creepy, kind of ominous school. And they notice that all the kids there are very proper, very sort of like, just they sort of have this heavenly presence to them that's very ominous. The workers there have this very heavenly presence to them, all very proper, well spoken. They're very, following a certain type of conduct. And you see that everybody is wearing this white gown clothing. They all have unanimously the same clothing. And as they walk through this school, you get these very weird symbols that, may or may not have some crazy origins to them. Very, very weird, ominous looking symbols that are all throughout the school. And then they meet the headmaster of the school. And headmaster is this very soft-spoken, sort of middle-aged man, and they refer to him as Father. And Father is a little bit off, obviously. He's very, sort of soft-spoken, very quiet. He'll just stare at you creepily for a long time. And they're trying to figure out more about how this cult originated, what some of the practices they have, and they sort of promote it in a very good way. However, at one point as they're recording this interview with Father, the battery to the camera basically dies out and they have to leave to go get new batteries. And the one guy is left in the headmaster office room with Father, and Father's not saying a single word. And then all of a sudden this bell chime goes off. And Father announces all of a sudden that it is time for the reckoning. Reckoning. There you go. That's the word. He said it's time for the reckoning. And everybody in the cult starts committing mass suicide. Yeah, it turns into a giant mass suicide and a mass homicide. These video people, these recorders, start getting targeted, potentially brutally killed. Father starts going crazy. All the people in the school start killing each other. The employees and workers, the kids start, committing mass suicide. And one of the girls in the group, in this reporter group, is actually, in a relationship with the main guy who's the leader of the group, but then she's having an affair with another employee guy who's working in there. So they end up talking down towards the basement level. As she starts exploring the school, the employees and the workers are very sort of hesitant to let her explore more. And she reveals in the bathroom to this other employee guy that she's having an affair with that she's pregnant. And she gets taken down to the basement by the employees, and some horrific stuff happens to her. And the scariest part about this entire segment is not just that they commit mass suicide and, start committing homicide. They aren't dead. Yeah, there's something going on in this school that when they all kill each other and commit suicide, they aren't dead. They come back in this very ghastly, ghostly, horrific zombie form and start attacking and targeting the reporters, the woman, the employee that's having an affair who's trying to break out of the school. They all seem to be possessed by some type of demonic force or some entity that brings them all back to life. All these dead children, all these dead workers that committed suicide in time of the reckoning, they all get brought back and they all start following Father. Father starts becoming crazy. He starts dancing and starts killing and bathing himself in blood and turning wild. And then they get down to the basement. And the woman who was pregnant may or may not start becoming a ritual sacrifice vessel to summon something that has created this possession effect upon all of these people that are the cult of the school. And what comes out of her, holy Jesus. And this thing starts targeting people. And then you get an ending to the story, which is dark comedy. It's comedic, it'll make you laugh, but it's so fucked up that you're like, should I be laughing? And yeah, this is a honest to God, a 10 out of 10 anthology horror segment. This is a perfect segment. This is my favorite segment in the entire VHS movie franchise. It's horrific. It's brutal. You get a lot of gore. It's such a creepy atmosphere with this cult setup, the idea of how these cult people act, the way Father acts, and in the time of the reckoning creates all this violence, gore, and blood, and then you get this demonic possession over the people. You get some horrific makeup and practical effects or whatever, visual effects involving how these people come back to life possessed, their eyes roll back into their head. They have all white eyes, no pupils. They start acting crazy. Their mouths gape open and they start chasing after you. It's horrific, dude. And then what is birthed out of the woman employee that's pregnant? It kind of reminded me of the origin of the Jersey Devil. When you see the segment, you're going to know what I'm talking about. But yeah, what comes out of her is crazy. It's horrifying. It's horrific. It's like creature feature mixed in with demonic possession, mixed in with cult stuff. That's what I love, man. That's what I love. All in found footage horror anthology format. So that was great. A 10 out of 10 perfect segment. And the last story in this movie has the best title out of any VHS horror movie segment, and that is Slumber Party Alien Abduction. Slumber Party Alien Abduction, to keep it short, is about these kids, and they have an older sister who invites over her boyfriend while their parents are out, and they have a giant sleepover. And, the boyfriend and her boyfriend's friends, her and him, try, getting drunk, having a good time, try having sex, and these little Sandlot type of fucked up kids, They start like harassing them. They start like spraying them with soakers, diving into the lake because this house that they're at is by this lake in this woods. They dive into the lake. They soak them with super soakers. They mess around with them and then they start getting into a fight. Basically like a giant slumber party fight between the sister and the kids and her boyfriend. And then all of a sudden they hear this very ominous, emergency signal type of voice. It's like this, boom, 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 boom. That's what it sounds like in the movie, where you'll just get this deafening boom, 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 boom. And it just seems very ominous. You're like, what the hell is that? And then all of a sudden they find out that there is a spacecraft, a spaceship that happens to be parked, I guess, across from the lake and across from their house or cabin. And every time they hear this, boom, 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 they find out that these very tall, these 7-8 foot tall, white, pale skin crawler, rake-looking aliens have come down and gotten ready to abduct them and hunt them down. And the segment turns into them running away from these aliens that are chasing them. And that's basically the segment. It's a simple one, but I thought it was pretty well done. This segment dealt with its lack of budget very good. It kept the setting in the dark woods. The lighting is sort of darker, so the aliens, being these very 7-foot tall pale figures, seem very ominous and creepy. And the way it's shot is that every time the spaceship will send out this frequency, boom, 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 you'll get these light up neon flashing lights and this dark smoky mist that's coming from the lake. And you'll see these giant aliens just crawling towards them and hunting them down. And obviously they got the big eyes, the wide mouths, and they're just chase after him. It's horrific, dude. These aliens look like fucking Wendigos. They look like Wendigos. They look like that creepypasta The Rake. They look like pale skin crawlers. They're these very white, tall, lanky beings that are just chasing after them. And you get some great scenes like where the kids fall into the lake and then these aliens start climbing up onto the wooden dock. And the way they're crawling is, again, like, the pale skin crawlers, like Wendigos. They, with these long arms and these giant fingers and claws, they start breaking up and ripping off the boards as they're crawling towards them on this wooden dock. They start chasing them in the woods. The kids are running with the dog. And the sister actually gets redeemed because the sister seems like pretty much a dick. The kids seem like dicks during this entire segment in a fun way. They got some like fun jokes and comedic moments. And I was laughing at how funny some of the jokes they did were. Like, it's just very stupid, very kid sort of humor, but I like that sort of jackass humor when it's well done. But they went from basically being like lovable dicks to now all of a sudden they're these like, they're put into this life and death situation, and they actually start grouping together. They actually start protecting each other, and they actually start looking out for each other, and they get redeemed in that way. And it makes what happens to them all the more horrifying, all the more scary. And yeah, the aliens in this segment are a highlight. They were creepy, very, very horrifying. The kids and the characters I liked in this segment, they were endearing, funny, I enjoyed them. And even when they acted like dicks, they ended up getting redeemed. And the way the story segment ends is very dark, very intense, and quite the scary chase scene. And that one I would give like an 8 out of 10, an 8.5 out of 10. Really good segment. And that's all I have. That's VHS 2013, VHS 2 2013. Overall, I would give this movie a 9 out of 10. I think it's weaker than the first movie. The first movie I gave a 9.5 out of 10 just because that movie had more consistently good segments. The Amateur Night Succubus segment, the Halloween Night Haunted House segment at the end, one of my favorite segments. The Glitch Slasher segment was very good. And even the Strange Thing That Happened to Emily When She Was Younger, fuck that title. That segment was also good and creepy and really weird in a good way. So those were just consistently either really good, very good, or even great segments. In this one, Safe Haven is my favorite segment I've ever watched in VHS, and Slumber Party Alien Abduction, that's a badass title, compared to the Strange Thing That Happened to Emily. This segment was very good, but, and Tape 49 was even very good, but Phase 1 Clinical Trials was just average, boring. I was really disappointed by the makeup effects on the ghosts, and A Ride in the Park is like weaker than the worst. This segment is worse than the weakest segment in the first movie. So overall, because of that, I give this one a 9 out of 10. It's still a great movie. I'd still recommend you watch it. It's a really fun time. It's just not as good as the first movie. So that's my review of VHS, 2 2013. Sorry if these videos end up being longer, but I like covering everything in these movies just so you guys get a good feel. And if you enjoyed, hit that subscribe button down below, hit that like button down below. We're almost at 300 subscribers. If we can hit that during the summer, whoo-wee, that'd be amazing. Please try to help me get to that, and if you do, God bless you. And comment down below your thoughts. Have you seen this movie? Do you like it? Do you not like it? Do you disagree with me? Do you agree with my points? And what are some of your favorite VHS films now that I've watched all of them? And that's all I have for today. Hope you guys enjoy, and stay tuned for more great content to come out this summer. Deuces. No, I don't have anything in this segment, so just fuck you.